Checking Facebook here. Hmm. Are you working from home?
I am today. Yeah, I'm about 60-40, 60% in the office and 40 at home.
Oh, that's good
So
then.
this week I was at the office for 3 days and at home for two. So it kind of
Okay, I
varies
think we're
depending on,
on.
yeah, we are. I see. Okay.
Okay, good. All right, let me just make sure I've got all the systems go. And we're on and we're live. And I'm going to head on. We're recording this, and we'll be
Awesome.
sharing this later on. Um, welcome to Heather Wilkie, the Executive Director of the Zebra Coalition. I'm really excited that she's here with us today because she is incredibly special because I've had the pleasure to work with her to support women, children, and men who have survived domestic abuse. So I know the level of integrity and the dedication that she has with any project that she works with. So to begin with, what I'd like to do, Heather, is to let everybody know a little bit about the podcast, and I'll read um, your bio, which I do appreciate that you forwarded to me because that way I didn't have to do all that homework. And that really does help. I appreciate it. So hello, everyone tuning in. Good morning, afternoon, and evening, wherever you're tuning in from. I'm Evelyn Cosme, an executive coach for women entrepreneurs and professionals. And my company is Evelyn Cosme International. And a client of mine dubbed me years ago the Change Whisperer. So, welcome to the first episode of Extraordinary Women of Guts and Grace, Compassionate, Fearless Leadership, What We Need for Times Like Now. With this platform, my intention is to highlight the outstanding contributions of women in their industry, their journey to success, strategies that work, and to inspire other women to lead and the next generation of leaders as well. Now, I'd like to go on and share with you Heather Wilkie's bio. And Heather has dedicated 17 years to community service and leadership in the nonprofit sector. For over 4 years, she served as the executive director for Zebra Coalition, an organization whose mission is to support and inspire LGBTQ plus youth. And the Zebra Coalition operates a youth drop-in center in Orlando, Florida, that serves a safe space and programming for hundreds of youth ages 13 through 24. Zebra Coalition also provides housing for youth experiencing homelessness, such a huge issue right now with our youth. And prior to her work at the Zebra Coalition, Mrs. Wilkie served as Chief Operating Officer for Harbor House of Central Florida, where she was responsible for the development and monitoring of programs for one of the largest and most comprehensive domestic abuse organizations in the United States. Mrs. Wilkes holds a master's degree in mental health counseling from Rollins College, and Mrs. Wilkie has also received numerous awards for her work, including Harbor House of Central Florida Champion of Equality and one of Orlando Magazine's 2018 Women of the Year Award as well. Now, before we begin with the interview, I want to encourage our viewers to open your minds and your hearts and to receive this information with compassion and as non judgmental as possible. Uh, the most important thing is, and I truly believe and have worked all of my life to help to improve the lives of children and youth and women and all children are important. And I think we have a really important social responsibility, no matter whether we're a parent, an entrepreneur, any field of work that we're in, we are all together held responsible, I believe, for the well-being of our children. So, Heather, please share with us a little bit about your journey. And I'm going to ask you this question because having worked with kids, I think this is really a huge part about who we become. And what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, that's a very good question, Evelyn. Well, I started out my journey actually in theater.
Oh,
And so I did a lot of work around the arts and theater when I was growing up, but ended up moving into the world of psychology in college. And then I actually moved to Florida and did an internship with a program called AmeriCorps. And in that program, we worked out in Apopka, Florida with the Farm Workers Association of Apopka. And so that's sort of how I got hooked into social services. And from there, I got linked up with the domestic violence, working with mostly women and children in domestic abuse. And sort of that's kind of how it grew from there. But when I was younger, I think I was more into the entertainment world.
so I guess your son does it does have it comes from somewhere. I
It
mean,
does.
he's definitely following your footsteps. He's charming, he's creative, he's amazing. So
Thank
what
you.
was the turning point for you in your life that helped you to decide to study mental health counseling? A lot of people go through different traumas or life experiences and choose their careers, especially in the helping field. At least for me, that was the case. So what was your turning point for that?
Yeah, I think it was really understanding what the need was and doing that important service work. And that started for me probably in high school when I was doing a lot of service work in the community, volunteering, and then into college through an internship. I actually worked with Boys and Girls Club in North Carolina. I graduated from University of North Carolina in Asheville, and I did a Boys and Girls Club aftercare program, and that sort of started the bug for service work.
Mhm.
But definitely doing the AmeriCorps experience in Apopka was eye-opening, where you really started to see that there were layers of need. And oftentimes things sort of mesh together when it comes to need, when you're looking at, intergenerational poverty, violence, trauma, all the things that we experience as young people that we may not have control over, and how that sort of perpetuates social issues. And it's fascinating to me. And I work my entire life to hopefully try to make little bits of positive pieces and parts of positive marks in that to try to overturn some of that for some people.
Well, I think you've done more than just a little bit. It's been a lot from my experience working with you, and I kept my eye on you with the Zebra Coalition, which you guys do great work in the community. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on. You're my first guest on the podcast.
I'm honored, Evelyn.
And
Thank you.
because I've worked with children myself for many years also, and I've been very dedicated to helping them improve their lives. And seeing now everything that's going on in the world, in our communities, youth are having a hard time. I mean, adults are having a hard time being at home and the social distancing and all these other issues. So on top of that, there are other circumstances that affect our youth. And I've noticed also the suicidal ideation has increased significantly. And I was looking at the stats on your website, which by the way is amazing. I love all the information, and the graphics are wonderful and quite to the point. Now, why work to support the LGBTQ community and youth at this time? You've been there already for 4 years. What drew you to that position? Because you have so many experiences and your training. What drew you to the LGBTQ community to work at this level? It's not easy. It's not easy.
Not easy work, right?
Not easy work.
I was doing a little bit of that work through an internship with actually working in circles of same gender couples who are experiencing domestic abuse. And so we did a couple of support groups around that when I was at Harbor House. And it sort of created this need for, or understanding for me to kind of open up the world of, okay, there's this whole world of marginalized individuals that need our support in a different way. You know, and when it
Absolutely.
comes to young people, which I just love working with young people, and I think you have some of that bug too, right? Where you, it's really inspiring
So wonderful. Yes.
to see this new generation and just to watch that grow. And I feel very inspired by them every day. But I think that there's a significant need of support in a different way for young people. And so I'm drawn to helping that world and trying to make a difference in those individuals. But you're talking about data, and when you started talking about what COVID has done, I think our young people have never needed more support, like always, like this is it, because they're
This
so
is it.
isolated. They're so
Mhm.
isolated right now, and it's hard to reach out for support. And when we're young, what our biggest way that we can grow as an individual is through our peer support, right? They need their friends.
Absolutely.
They need to be able to connect in different ways. And so while we've done a really good job in doing that virtually, it's not the same. And so it's having that additional resource for young people to connect with each other. And that's why organizations like Zebra are so important. We have an
Absolutely.
excellent mental health team. I have a team of 3 therapists plus 6 interns right now
Wow.
who are working in mostly the major schools around the Central Florida area. And so we oversee those interns, and they are trained to provide support in trauma reduction, and then also gender specific resources for gender specific areas. So as an example, we may have someone who comes in who is transgender, gender non-binary. Our therapists are trained in those areas to work specifically with those some challenges that may arise. In addition to that, we work with parents, and I actually facilitate our
That's
parent
great.
group. Every 2 weeks, we have a group for parents to support them, because we can't support the kid unless we're supporting the parents, right? And so
Absolutely.
our goal is to make sure that we have, youth who have a healthy environment at home. If they can't have a healthy environment at home for a lot of different reasons, then we want to be there to provide that additional support.
And that's really impressive that there's a collaborative effort with the school system. How challenging was it to get into the school system in order to provide these really important services?
I saw a major shift in just the community support after the Pulse shooting. To be honest with you, like prior to that, I believe that there was a disconnect with the community, and I saw that happen. And I had only been with the organization for 8 months when that happened,
Right.
but I definitely saw that the community came together in a different way. And not only just the community members, but we started seeing changes on a larger scale. We had more support from the school board. We got more support from individual teachers, from admin, from individual schools. And so we've carried that support from that point moving forward. And I think it's because they saw how it impacted their students,
Mhm.
and then also as a part of that overlay, we've had a complete change in our social environment. More kids are coming out at a young age. More kids are needing that support, and more families are supporting them. Like, that's another thing to
That's
say. Like,
wonderful. Mhm.
often our story is, well, family rejection, families that don't, accept their kids. We know that there are many families that accept their kids. And so just having that, knowing that that's going to change, and because parents are going to demand it, they go to the schools and they say, hey, I support my child, I need support from the school. And so we have a great relationship with our public school systems, and I think it's been built from that, but I've definitely noticed that was a shift when Pulse happened in our community.
And I think it wasn't just Pulse too. I think there lots of other circumstances have also added to that. And I really appreciate what your organization is doing. That you have the guts and the grace, because I know you, to reach out to the schools, and whatever those kids needs, they will have somehow, some way, and I'm sure of that. So I have no doubt of that.
I love
S-
this guts and grace thing, Evelyn. I think it's
oh, good.
great. I
Thank
love
you.
it.
That's what it takes nowadays. And you and I have been in settings where we know this is what it takes to lead and to get
Absolutely.
things done. And
Mhm.
especially if you're working for a nonprofit, as important as yours, and with
Mhm,
domestic abuse, as we work together at
mhm,
some point. And I know you probably, all of these issues are part of any service provider
mhm.
right now, in psychology and counseling, social work, etc. We all have to be dealing with different cases that include all of these elements, or a few of them, or a combination of them.
Sure.
So with your work, I know that it's very difficult from experience to gain the support of the government in terms of
Mm,
funding. There's
mm.
not a lot of funding. How do you survive and provide all these services?
That's a good, important thing to mention. I say that we're a little bit fortunate in the sense that because we work with the younger population, a lot of times we're eligible for grants and
Oh,
funding
great.
for just young people in general. But when you're talking about marginalized groups, it does become more challenging. So I can't just go for a lot of funds necessarily that are just LGBT specific, because there's not a lot out there, right? But
Mhm.
because we work with kids, there's a little bit of that. So we do receive about 60% of our funding is from grant support.
Okay.
We've been very fortunate with corporate support and of course individual donors. Like
Mhm.
that's our bread and butter right there. Really people who love what we do and support what we do because they understand the importance of it. And so cultivating that, we have fundraisers throughout the year to help with that, and try to get people involved in understanding the needs and why do organizations like Zebra have to exist. We're not just a group that provides social support. Yes, that's part of it, but we are providing a critical service for mental health therapy and housing that
Mhm.
really doesn't exist anywhere else in the community. And so it's understanding and messaging that need to get people to understand that, hey, this is all we have. This is important, and we're the only ones doing it, and so we have to support that.
Wow. And uh, a lot of people aren't familiar with the concepts and the terminology related to the LGBTQ community. And I noticed on the website, because it's so well developed and thought out, you have a list there of different concepts and terms and whatnot, and the definitions to facilitate that. Is there anything you'd like to mention of that right now?
Sure, I
And
can talk
other
a little.
resources that you have that people can learn more and become more familiar, and awaken the desire to donate, or to provide any type of services that your agency might need.
Sure, I can talk a little bit about that. And thank you for visiting the website. I think
Oh
it
yeah, it's
would be, if you all
awesome.
are interested, anybody who's listening, please visit zebrayouth.org. We do have some definitions and a site on that. We also offer training that's free to the community. And we
Oh,
do that
awesome.
through Zoom right now. Our next one will
Of
be
course.
early March. We just had
Mhm.
one back in December, so it's every quarter. And that is completely free to the community. We also do specialized groups for anybody who, if they're asking for support, we can work with your organization. So say you're part of a church group or you're part of a school or something, where you have multiple people who need that training. That training is a cultural competency training for LGBTQ information, and we go through pronouns. We talk about the
Okay.
alphabet. We say alphabet like the LGBTQ plus, and everybody does, different,
Mhm.
uses different acronym depending on who you're talking about. So we go through, what does that mean? Why is it important to use pronouns? What does this look like for a transgender person? What is non-binary? All those words that we get caught up in, we try to unpack that. And then in addition to that, understanding the data. Why is it that a young person who's LGBTQ may be at a greater risk for suicidal ideation or sexual harassment or sexual assault, those types of things that we know are more likely to happen for someone who is marginalized and LGBTQ, right? So we go through all of that. It's an hour and a half long training. Right now it's on Zoom and we do it once a quarter. You can find that on our website if you'd like to sign up.
Great, thank you. And for any listeners from the audience, I encourage you to do that. And the more that you learn about the LGBTQ community and people who identify as LGBTQ, uh, it, having understanding opens up the possibilities for engaging interactions that are more healthy and conducive to just being compassionate and helping others and understanding others and the acceptance of others, especially our youth. This is our tomorrow, and we have to nurture and support them as much as we can. Now, I wanted to go in terms of the challenges, and you mentioned already some of them, this suicidal ideation and the homelessness. And homelessness is a huge aspect of what everything that's going on today. I think we're going to be talking about before and after COVID.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
I don't know if you want to divide it that way, the information, but why don't you start sharing some of the major challenges that LGBTQ youth face today?
Sure. Well, I'll start with just a data point. That's sort of a big data percentage that always kind of catches my ear, is that we know nationally that about 42% of all youth experiencing homelessness identify as LGBTQ plus. So 42% are LGBTQ. So then we ask the question of why is that? Well, we know that family rejection is a big part of that, and also not having the social systems and support that we need as young people. Oftentimes we may engage in unhealthy behaviors because we aren't supported at home or supported at school. So you may have, someone who's using substances at a young age, or someone who ran away from home at a young age, or were pushed out of their home at a young age. And then those behaviors start to sort of amplify. And then we get to a place often where we really either engage in further unhealthy behaviors, and you look at, like, say, human trafficking, or you're looking at long-term homelessness, all of the things that we know are really, really bad in society, right? And it starts with not having a lot of support often with that. And that's just a couple of versions of the story. We know that individuals experience a lot of different things. And sometimes it's based in trauma. Sometimes it's based in our early life experiences, as you know, about child development and how that can happen. But we know that it is a much greater risk for someone who is LGBTQ versus someone who is not. And that's why we provide that housing support. In addition to that, you have, maybe negative self-talk from the beginning, negative self-understanding. And so because of that, because maybe you feel like you're on the outside, or that you're never going to be normal or healthy, that you start to believe that you're not worthy of things, right? And that's where we can see some depression. We may see anxiety. We may see eating disorders. All of the challenges that can happen from a mental health perspective due to a lot of different things that happen in early development. And not feeling like we have that support at a young age. So we want to get there before that happens.
Of
That's
course.
ideally, is that we would be able to see someone who is, young, just starting out and just starting to experience these things. But what tends to happen is they come to us after the fact. So we're working and trying to get them some safety resources, trying to get them some coping mechanisms, and really helping them develop into adulthood in a healthier way.
Now, once they're done, because the age group you serve is 13 to 24, are there other services after 24 years old?
That's a good question. So we do have a good network locally of therapists that we work with for when they're transitioning out of our program. There are some also supports for housing. We try to set them up with different resources for long-term housing before they get to that point. So say that they come in at age 23, we want to set them up for success. So they already know that by the time they could stay in our program for a certain amount of time. So by the time they turn 25, they will have already had that plan. But there are resources for adults. It's just a little bit different than what we do.
Okay. And what strategies would you recommend or suggest for entrepreneurs, professionals, any leaders that are working with children, youth, young adults, in any capacity, and they could be because they're volunteering or they were hired in some capacity, or completing internships for that matter. What could you recommend? What can they do to help, resources that they might have at hand, besides, of course, most definitely referring them to Zebra Coalition?
Yeah, because I mean, there's only so much that, one organization can do. So I
Of
think it's
course.
important to talk about those resources. There are national resources that are
Mhm.
24/7 for crisis response. One big one that we utilize, actually, they're one of our coalition partners, is called the Trevor Project.
Mm.
And the Trevor Project is it's specific for LGBTQ plus youth for suicidal prevention. They have a hotline, they have a chat line for any young person ages 13 to 24 who is in need of immediate support. And then there's also something called Q Chat for young people who can, it's strictly a chat
Mhm.
room to share resources. It's not necessarily based in suicide prevention. It's more of just a social resource. Now they talk about specific areas and you can sign up for your topic area depending on what you're interested in. So there's that's qchatspace.org is the website. And then for parents, there's also an organization based out of California that's national called the Gender Spectrum. And Gender Spectrum offers a ton of resources for parents, for students, for young people, for caregivers, for
Wonderful.
grandparents even. They have a lot of different all online webinars, trainings, all at no cost.
And I think, having worked in the social and helping field for so many years, and you have as well, sometimes there are dangers. And could you speak a little bit more about the dangers that LGBTQ plus youth face? And you mentioned the homelessness and the possibility of human trafficking, and how involved is Zebra Coalition in helping to rescue or engage in any type of activities more directly with that aspect of the dangers they may face?
One thing that we have done intentionally over the last 2 years is something that it doesn't get discussed a lot is the reality that sexual assault happens at also a higher rate for LGBTQ
Mhm.
young people. And so we have a specific program that's in partnership. We received a grant through the Office of Violence Against Women, and we actually have a partnership with Victim Service Center here locally that focuses on sexual assault. And so they actually have, since our partnership, hired an advocate who only works with the LGBTQ plus community who have experienced violence, mostly based in sexual violence, but could really be any crime if they're a victim of a crime. And then we do a lot of outreach and educational information around that. So I have a specific training that we can use for any companies that need it that just
Oh,
talks
great.
about that, or any organizations. So that's one big thing. Human trafficking is also a really big issue for young, especially young boys, who may be victims at a young age due to family rejection, runaway, all of the things that can happen before you find yourself in, as a victim in human trafficking. So we do partner with our human trafficking organizations here. And then we also have housed a lot of young people who have been victims of human trafficking, who are working through the system and trying to get some help. So all of the things that come to us have different, everyone who comes to us has had a different life experience. Some of them have had a lot of those really scary victimization experiences. And then some of them may just be very young and have never even lived on their own before. And so we really have that wide range of young people who we're working with. So it keeps us on our toes, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And how about your volunteer base? What are you able to count with right now? How large is it? Do you have a program to train them?
Yeah, right now it's challenging because we aren't really doing a whole lot with volunteers just because of COVID.
Oh, okay.
Most of our services are online right now. So we moved everything to telehealth, and then we have a housing program where we have three people who oversee the housing program. We have case managers and a manager. And so normally pre-COVID, we do have front desk volunteers who can help with our drop-in center. So young people can come in and get emergency crisis supplies at the drop-in center. We still have that open 3 hours a day right now, but we aren't accepting volunteers just because it's a small space. We do have events throughout the year where we engage volunteers in different events. Our Pride events are big. We have different fundraisers throughout the year where we can engage volunteers. Right now, we're a little bit, mostly all of our events are online. So it's a little bit challenging. We still have a good group of volunteers we communicate with, and they stay in touch with us. And hopefully one day, very soon, we're all going to be vaccinated or whatever that looks like.
Whatever it looks like. Absolutely. That's why it will be from now on, before and after COVID. And
You're right.
This post-COVID will end soon, this phase of it, and we can move on and do amazing things. Now, I'm curious about churches. What role are churches playing, and different faith-based type organizations?
Big, actually. I mean, we have 3 in our coalition. We have 3 churches in our coalition, so they're official partners. But then beyond that, we have several in the community who do a ton of work for us. We've had them do, they've been offered to do gift card drives during Christmas for the youth. We do a big campaign at the end of every year so we can make sure that our kids get taken care of and give them gift cards so they can shop for themselves in stockings and do all that. So the churches have been very actively involved in that. Oftentimes we have had churches come in and feed the youth at the drop-in center, where they've hosted cookouts. We actually did one even despite COVID, and one of our local churches came in over Christmas and sponsored our Christmas party. And we did like a physically distanced, masked Christmas party, but we had a whole spread of food that was just thanks to one of our local churches. So there's a lot of work there. We've also trained church communities. There are faith leaders that sit on some of our committees to help us with education as well. So, I mean, while there is work to be done in that area, I will say that we are very fortunate in our community to have a ton of support.
So again, if any church is interested in collaborating and partnering in any way, they just go to the website or give the agency a call and reach out, right?
Absolutely. There is an info email address on that website. That's the easiest way to find us.
Okay, great. Now, when it comes to women aspiring to lead and who want to break through the established barriers and create innovative initiatives and help change the world somehow, and especially just to improve the lives of others, and that there's equity, and all of the things that youth need at this time, what would you say are strategies or the mindset that a woman would need in order to start that path and to create great changes?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest thing that comes to mind for younger people would be to have mentorships. Like, I think mentor programs are so important. Sometimes that's an organic process that isn't an official mentor program, right? And so making the connections, if you are young and you're interested in a field, and I have people reaching out to me sometimes to do this, and it's great. Where, say, maybe I have somebody who's interested in getting involved in social services or the LGBTQ work that we do, or activist work. They may reach out to me and just ask some questions like, hey, can you give me some pointers on this? Professors are often a good place to start if you're in school that have reach in the community, but talk to people, figure out what was their path, and it may not be that your path is going to be exactly the same, but to have someone who has that experience, who has years behind them and knowing how to navigate this often challenging world for women, is the biggest thing. Networking is so important. There are many groups here locally, especially in the nonprofit community, that you can use to network. Edith Bush Center over at Rollins is a great one. The Central Florida Foundation is another good one. And a lot of them have young nonprofits. And I'm just speaking to nonprofit because that's my world. Right. But a lot of them have subgroups that you can network with. And I'm sure that is the case for a lot of different areas of study.
Okay. And I have a lot of young people that approach me in different ways and through my work. And sometimes my clients ask for me to work with their youth to help them figure out who they want to be when they grow up, what do they want to do. Because a lot of youth right now are having issues with knowing what to do. And I think if adults are going through a period of great uncertainty, we can't imagine what youth are going through. You know, the uncertainty, will I be able to finish my degree? Will I get a job, etc.? And everything is pivoting online. We're all doing it. I'm doing it, and everyone I know is doing it, even with the telehealth now. Who would have thought years ago that we'd be doing counseling therapy sessions online? That, you know, it's
Right,
unheard of, really.
right.
And so, but we're doing what we need to do because we do believe that this is so important and so needed, working with trauma, crisis, and the life transitions that we're all going through
Mhm.
in different ways. The health is being affected by it, mental health, and just a slew of things that are coming up, and people are being triggered from past traumas as well, having this time at home. And uh, with the LGBTQ youth, though, what changes have you seen specifically regarding COVID?
The changes in youth or the changes in
In the
systems?
issues and in being
Mhm,
able to access
mhm,
resources,
mhm.
etc. I mean, if they're
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
lucky enough to be connected to Zebra Coalition, they're set, because at least they'll have a path to follow, they'll have the support. But what are you seeing? What are the trends?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing is that school, if they're not in school physically, they're not going to have the resources, in the same way that they would have if they were in person. And then the other thing is, a lot of times with parents, they may not be accepting of their kids and they may be monitoring what they're doing online. And so sometimes we've heard stories about, getting additional phones, or kids like having to walk away when they're looking at their phone to make sure that they have privacy, connecting in ways that are just different. But I think the isolation is a big part of it.
Mhm.
You really need that as part of your social development. You need that physical interaction with your peers. We all remember that when we were
Right.
young and we
Yeah.
needed
We
your
still
friends
need it.
become, we still need it. We still need it, but your friends become your most important,
Absolutely.
social system. And so because of that, it's been very challenging. A lot of more social anxiety comes up too,
Mhm.
because now, in some ways, we're slowly getting back to where we were in different capacities. And so there's a lot of social anxiety there, because how your brain responds to that in the initial phase is that
Mhm.
you adapt. Right now we're having to reverse this adaptation. So like it's interesting to watch the social anxiety of young people. Like, I don't want to call somebody, or I can't go in person because there's
Yeah,
this
right.
comfort
Mhm.
zone now. It will be interesting to see this long term and find out if there have been any major effects, or can we just kind of switch back to where we were.
And the other thing is, the other thing is the touching part of it. You know,
Hmm.
it's not just hanging out, is being held, reaching
Hmm.
out and touching someone,
Hmm.
being up close. It just creates a level of intimacy and trust, hopefully, in some aspects. And so it goes beyond, and I think it's just affecting the fiber of every human being. So I really hold space for our youth in terms of their needs. And please remember, anyone and everyone who's listening, if you're here now with the live presentation here or on the replay, reach out somehow, some way, either to the Zebra Coalition. Find out, if you can't donate yourself and you have a friend or someone that you know that can, steer them to Zebra Coalition's way, because they're really needing all the support that the community can provide at this time. We really have to protect our children from all of these challenges that Heather just shared with us. And I have another question. If you had all the money that you could possibly use for the Zebra Coalition, what would be the services that you would implement to take it to the next phase? What would that look like?
Well, we know we need more housing. And
Of
so
course.
we're hoping that we can have one standalone location for that housing.
Wonderful.
And
Wow.
that's hopefully going to be in the next few years.
Mhm.
I'm hoping for sooner than later, but we
Of
are
course.
looking for that. And the reach, I think the reach, because here's the positive thing about telehealth is that we can reach more youth that way
Oh,
who may
wow.
not otherwise be able
Mhm.
to have, physically come to the location. So I think that we can see ourselves expanding and offering a hybrid
Okay.
pretty much indefinitely, because we would always want to have the digital resource to reach young people in Lake County or in Brevard County or whatever that looks like. So we could just keep expanding and making sure we're creating that reach and access point for young people.
Great. Thank you. And uh, I want to go back to parents because if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy, you know? I always say that. And so helping parents understand if there's a parent here listening, even if your child is not identified LGBTQ plus, you may have a child who has friends, acquaintances that are. Please be knowledgeable. Please be caring and compassionate and respectful of these children. If they come by your home, if your children are out with them, and be aware that they may be going through things that you can't even fathom. You know, it is amazing. And having worked as a therapist myself and a case manager for many years in the past with children and youth and young adults, um, it was always difficult for me when I worked with a child whose parents had asked them to leave the home, and usually it wasn't in a very caring manner. They didn't provide other resources for them, or and disconnected totally from them, and it was very hard with the resources at that time because I'm many more moons than you are. but but at that time
Yeah.
we hardly even spoke about this, you
Mhm,
know,
mhm.
years ago. I remember growing up, if there was someone in the community, you just didn't say anything about it. And I'm so happy that we're having this conversation today. I'm so happy that we have this platform
Mhm.
to share your information, the knowledge that you have about the LGBTQ plus youth, and how we can all be part of supporting our youth in our communities, in our churches, in our families as well. Because I don't think there's not any family who may not have an LGBTQ youth or an adult who's already an adult. And personally, I have dear friends, and in the family there are as well. So I'm very connected to what's going on in that respect. And there's no difference. Children are children. And I'm so happy, Heather, that you're the person that's directing the Zebra Coalition. I can't think of anyone better, of a lot of the people that I know in the field, to do the work that's being done, because of your integrity and your work ethics and your dedication. Is You're unstoppable, girl. Definitely. And so they're very lucky to have you, and I'm so glad that you are available and providing these services. Now, we're coming to an end because I don't want to take too much of your time, and I know you're very busy. Uh, would you like to share any events or initiatives that the organization is going to have soon?
Well, first of all, thank you for your kind words, Evelyn. You've always been so supportive, and I appreciate you having me on here. And what you're doing is very empowering, and I love it. And
Thank
so,
you.
if there's anything I can do from this point to help support you, I appreciate
Thank
that.
you. I
Um,
appreciate it.
And we do have, we are launching our Valentine's Day event that's coming up. It's
Okay.
all virtual. We're going to have a Valentine's Day date night experience where you can pick up at Quantum Leap Winery, which is right down the road from Zebra in downtown Orlando. And there's going to be online options as well. A gift basket for your date night, and you can go on with your friend, or you can go on with your intimate partner, or you can do it by yourself.
Date.
So we didn't want to be just couples. It's really for anyone. And we have a guided meditation, self-guide, journaling project that we're going to do. And
How
it will have
exciting.
some goodies in the basket for everybody that are very like self-care oriented, candles and things. So that's going to be a new project that will come around for Valentine's Day. And then throughout the year, we have different events. In June, we usually have our Pride event, so there's a lot around that. I would say the best thing you can do is to follow us on social media. We do a lot of work in social media to get, and even with education and also promoting events and youth access to resources.
Okay,
And
great.
then we'll keep in touch.
Absolutely. And and you already expressed that everyone can go online and either to the Facebook page or the website for information, services, or any trainings
Right.
for the community, as well as businesses and faith-based organizations. And parents can get some training, additional support as well, and information about resources. So the website's key. I'll be posting below the video information about the website. And would you want me to put the phone number also there? Should I include it? Or
Sure.
Okay.
Our office hours are still there, so you can include the number
Okay,
and
great.
then the website.
Now we're going to wrap this up. Give us some words of wisdom for the audience.
Well, I think that I will echo what you said about staying. All of our youth are important. All of our young people are important. We are here to support and inspire them. And please stay connected. We need to help raise this next generation because they are rock stars. And so I can't wait to see what they do, but they need our help and support.
Exciting. Yes. Thank you so much again for accepting to be on the show, episode number 1. And thank you for viewing today's episode on the challenges that our LGBTQ plus youth face and how to help and support Zebra Coalition. Please tune in next week for episode 2 of our podcast, Extraordinary Women of Guts and Grace, Compassionate, Fearless Leadership. And remember how I always sign off: much self-love, compassion, and benevolence. You deserve it. I deserve it. And everybody around us deserves it too. Keep the peace, everybody. Much love. Thank you again, Heather. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Evelyn.
Bye-bye.
Stay in touch. Bye.
I will, definitely.